Hello, everybody. Thank you for listening to the Healthy Project podcast. I am your host, Corey Dion Lewis. I have a great guest with us today. I have Aubrey Alvarez, Food Rescue, which is a super cool company, nonprofit here in the Des Moines area, doing some really impactful things. And and we've talked about this before, Aubrey, but the way I already knew of you because I have the app and things like that. But you guys actually served at our conference, came and got the leftover food. And hopefully we were able to get that to some people that needed it the most. So, Aubrey, again, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to chat with you and kind of share. Hearing about the Healthy Project and kind of what you've been doing really harkens back to kind of my original career in health and wellness and corporate wellness. So this is it's great to have that side of my professional career and then my work now with Eat Greater Des Moines and food systems kind of come together.
No, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. That's why there's so much I want to talk about in so little time. But
Yeah.
before we get going into the conversation, can you tell the people a little bit about yourself and what gets you up in the morning?
Yeah, so I'm from Southwest Iowa, grew up in a small town. My parents were both teachers. And, while there was a farm behind my house, it wasn't our farm and we didn't grow anything or anything like that. So, I guess growing up in Iowa, I just assumed a lot of the food that was happening and growing that we were purchasing and consuming was grown in my backyard. So, that was kind of how I've gone through life for, I'm 42 now. It was probably not until my late 20s, but probably more so early 30s, that I really had the chance to sit down and think about, where does this food come from? And, coming from a health and wellness background, I went to school originally to be a teacher. I went to University of Northern Iowa, really I picked UNI because I loved their wellness facility. I make really, important life decisions based on, things like that. So it was a beautiful brand new facility. And while I was there, I ended up changing my major to health promotion and health and wellness. So, I ended up getting to move right into corporate wellness after college, which was what I was really wanting to do. I think really what I found is I like being with people. I like helping people realize how amazing they are. I think that's kind of why I'm not athletic by any means. I always went out for sports in school, but you can ask my parents, I'm not good. I just like being active with my friends.
Just
I
like
thought it
moving
was
around and just doing
exactly. I
stuff.
was like, I don't want to do, these kinds of push-ups and line drills by myself. Like that sounds awful. But I like working out with other people. So to know that I could have a career in that, especially because I have never looked like the traditional fitness model. I've always been heavier. And, I think that was really empowering for me too, to, just help others see like there isn't one model of how you're supposed to look when you are active. And so, I enjoyed doing that work for a long time. I ended up getting my master's in public administration from Drake University. And through a random, how kind of life and careers go, ended up working in nonprofit and applied for a local food coordinator job. And that's what turned into Eat Greater Des Moines and where I am now. But, I remember when I was interviewing for that position and someone asked me, what are your thoughts on the local food system? I kind of had that deer in the headlights blank stare, like, I like the farmer's market. I like
Right.
food, but when you say local food system, I don't really know what you mean. So, that's really where I think I've been very lucky in this role is that I've gotten to learn about the food system. And what I found out about myself is when I learn something cool or I'm like, I didn't know that. That's kind of great. I like to share it. And I want to help. I'm fine asking the questions and then helping other people realize, hey, did you know this? I didn't. And kind of passing that along. And so that's really where Eat Greater Des Moines and kind of my career have kind of joined in with being able to make the connections, what I thought, what I've learned. And then really that kind of turned up to just how many opportunities there are, when we are a country that has so much food and so much abundance, yet at the same time, we have all of these challenges with hunger and nutrition. And that has never made sense in my brain. And I think I'm really lucky to be doing work that's really trying to connect those gaps.
Right.
I elevate those things and then work on figuring out how we can fix them. So it's an exciting position to be in, but it's also a little scary because there is no path. We don't know what that looks like. We've never been there before, but I'm confident that we have the right people here to figure it out. It's just working together to do it.
Right. I mean, and I can only imagine as you're going on this journey, like you said, no one's really done it before. So like it's you, no pressure kind of kind of a thing.
That's been
But
a little terrifying at times when I've gone to conferences and been like, I can't wait to be inspired by, another city or another community that's really nailing this. And then I looked around and was like, oh no, I think
right.
we're in the same space and kind of in the lead in some areas as a lot of other cities. I found partners and collaborators in the work, but I've also found that no one's figured it out yet. And that's what is inspiring and terrifying.
Right. Right. And I want to kind of talk about that work. And we're talking specifically about, the food insecurities in our communities. If and for me, you kind of always you hear about food insecurity, it's there, then you're confused. Like we have all this food waste. How are there food insecurities? But the deeper you get into it, I'm sure for you, you can't maybe you've had this experience, is you start to see behind the curtain of how all of this works and like, oh my gosh, like what is going on here? But can you talk a little bit about the
Yeah.
lack of access to affordable and nutritious foods, and how does that impact these families in these populations that are suffering from these insecurities?
Yeah. Well, I feel like I kind of look at food insecurity and food access, kind of two ways. So, one, there's the food insecurity and access, just because you might live in a city, but you don't have access to transportation. And when you look around your neighborhood, the only places to get food are maybe a convenience store, or, you don't have a grocery store where you can purchase things. And
Right.
I've learned too over the years, instead of referring to those as food deserts, to call it really a food apartheid, or because these food deserts happen naturally. These didn't happen naturally. These were planned and built, and there wasn't consideration of those living there and how are they going to access food and how are they going to do that on a consistent basis. So, there's that piece of it of just where around you, especially if you don't have a car, if you have,
Yeah.
physical limitations, how do you get your food? I think, growing up as with the privilege of having, a car, I've never worried about that. But we know that transportation is an enormous barrier for many people. So just looking around, and that happens in cities, but it also happens in rural communities. We have a lot of rural communities who no longer have a grocery store, who don't have they have to travel 45 minutes to an hour to even go grocery shopping. So, I think that is definitely a big piece of this, because then that means that those families either have to spend more for really lower quality food, or, really jump through a lot of hoops just to go grocery shopping. At the same time, I think when we look at, I grew up too with, that you have to eat all your food, there's starving kids in, whatever country, they would love to have this. No one ever talked about, like, there's starving kids in my neighborhood. There's starving
Man.
kids in my school. Like, this isn't an others problem. This is in every community. And I think what we know, and I realize myself, is when I've been in challenging situations, I've been in a situation where I should have for sure gone to a food pantry and gotten help. But my pride was what kept me from doing that. I was already feeling not good enough, and that it was my fault that I was in this situation where I was working full time, had a place to live, had a vehicle, but that was all I could cover with what I was making. And I didn't have enough to go grocery shopping. So, I recognize how that just being like, oh, well, just go to a food pantry isn't as simple as it seems. And not, food pantries aren't a grocery store. You can't
Right.
go every day, you don't get everything you need. And, food pantries are doing the best they can, but we can't look at, there's kind of been this one solution. We've had, besides the federal programs with SNAP and WIC and, reduced free and reduced lunches and senior programs, there's those kinds of things. But then otherwise, really the solution has been, oh, we have food pantries and food banks, and that should be enough. And what I've learned too over the last, 30, 40 years, that isn't enough. Food pantries and food banks are doing the best they can, but especially in the most recent years, as we've learned, the quality of the food that you're eating is as important as having something to eat. Food banks were really set up as a warehouse model. I think people remember, it's been mostly canned goods and, cheese that doesn't need to go in a refrigerator. That's terrifying. So,
Yeah.
that quality of food, I definitely am one that says any food is better than no food. But as we start looking at, okay, but everyone deserves fruits and vegetables and stuff to make sure you can live and thrive. And I think that's really where we haven't figured it out. We've seen more food pantries and food banks trying to add more fresh produce, but really when you look at the food banking model, it is a warehouse model. So especially when we're talking about food waste, all of that really fresh, highly perishable, whether it's meat and dairy items or fresh fruit and vegetables, that doesn't fit in the traditional food banking model. That really needs to move quickly. And so that's really where I think, this juxtaposition of we're wasting at least 40% of everything that's produced in our country, while at the same time, 1 in 6 kids don't have enough to eat. That is because we haven't figured out this part, how food can be so expensive, yet stores are throwing away so much of it. That just doesn't make sense in my brain why that's allowed to continue, but it has.
Yeah, there are a few things that you said when you were talking there that really stood out to me, Aubrey. And it's one, the privilege of transportation. And, Des Moines is a bigger city, but it's not the biggest city. And you think like, man, I can get from anywhere I want to within 15 minutes, 20 minutes max.
Hmm.
And that's a privilege. But to not have a vehicle to just go to the grocery store is crazy. And who wants to get on the bus to go to the grocery store, especially right now? It's what, 30 to 20 some degrees outside,
Hmm.
snowing. You know what I mean? Like that is a huge challenge for a lot of people in the city. So that's
Yeah.
that's
And then you add in a
one.
couple kids and
Yeah.
you want to try to
Like,
go grocery shopping with a few kids and all your groceries. Like, I don't like doing that with a vehicle, let
right.
alone on the bus.
And then the fear of somebody, God forbid it doesn't happen, but somebody taking your stuff or robbing you, or
Hmm.
that can happen. I'm sure it has. I'm
100%.
sure it has happened. Right. So there's that we have to think about for a lot of people in our community. The other thing that you said was the lack of innovation with these food pantries. And I see patients all the time where they may have $50 in food assistance, and then they have to fill in the rest of that doesn't get them through the whole month. So they fill in the
No.
rest of the month with the food pantry. And these are people who are diabetic, high blood pressure, multiple, comorbidities or chronic diseases,
Hmm.
and they're going to the food pantry. And this is no shade or no hate, it's food pantry, but
Hmm.
a diabetic is eating, muffins and cakes because they need food. They
Hmm.
need something to eat, but that's what they have. That's what their access is.
Yeah.
And I think you touched on something super important that I don't think a lot of people are even considering is the food banks is broke, bruh. Like like how we're doing it is not creative and it's not innovative. And it's it's almost like, hey, there's food there, that should be enough, but we're kind of, in a way, hurting or creating a bigger problem because these people with these diseases are going there for food, and this the food that, like you said, can stay on the shelf for months upon months,
Mhm.
which is not fantastic. You
Yeah.
gotta do what you gotta do. You know what I mean? You gotta do what you gotta do, but it's not
Mhm.
fantastic, and we're not making healthier human beings. So
Yeah,
what are we
and
doing?
there's no balance there. I think that's what we talk about coming from a wellness, is balance. It's, there's nothing inherently wrong with having cake, but having it that's the only thing you have access to every day, that would make anyone feel awful. But again, we're not, and I think that's where food banks and food pantries are, I really respect the Des Moines Area Religious Council, DMARC, they took a
Yeah.
look and said, they did a study with Iowa State to say, who are we serving and what are, those potential health and comorbidities, and saw that a majority of their clients had diabetes, had high blood pressure, had a lot of, health challenges, and what they were serving them wasn't helping. So they made the choice to only provide, so all of the food that they're purchasing low sodium. They're, purchasing, trying to provide more fresh fruits and vegetables. And I think that is just a tremendous, not to say they don't have other, like hamburger helper and some of those, like, but they ask for whole grain pasta, and low sugar kinds of sauces. That's what they purchase with their resources. What they use for some of those add-in things that, they call it sometimes anytime food. That's where food rescue generally goes, is that's available every day. You can come and get it as often as you want. What we've seen is, for some reason, and this is somewhat, I would say it's not super unique to Iowa, but I think Iowa is in an interesting spot where we have four major, like, our grocery store chains and gas convenience store chains are based in Iowa. So we don't have, Kroger's and Publix and Albertsons and some of these other grocery stores that have really latched on to food recovery, and in a way that, what I heard from a Kroger executive, how when they first started food recovery, they started in the meat department. My jaw literally dropped. Like, there's video of it. It was
Yeah.
on stage at a World Food Rise. And I was like, you started in the meat department? That's really, here we have a really hard time even getting to the meat department. For some reason, a lot of food donors here are really, if they donate, they'll donate from the bakery, which, okay,
Right.
but you have all this other good food. Why are we not doing that? And so that's, I think, what can be sometimes tricky, is when you hear from places that are like, oh yeah, we do food rescue, we've donated 25 million pounds of food. What did you donate? Unless you're a bakery, why are you donating just bakery items? If you're a full service grocery store, what's happening with all the fresh cut fruits and vegetables? What's happening with the meat? We know from some grocery stores, they're known for having fresh meat, and they throw away what they don't sell at the end of the day.
Yes. What
That's
is it?
ridiculous.
Yeah, why would you rather, and this is where it's like, make it make sense for me. Why would you rather throw away the meat instead of giving it to someone that needs it, or even reselling it to maybe something at a reduced cost? I don't know how that works. I'm sure there's probably stuff, but
There's plenty of ways to figure it out. And I think
yeah.
that's what shocked me the most is, food rescue and food recovery isn't new. It was new to me. I wasn't familiar with it when I started in this role. I just assumed, and I know what happens when you assume, but I assumed that, why would any of these businesses who their focus is on food, why would they throw it away? They see the value of it. Why would they waste it? So it wasn't until one of my, final, I was at an event, where they have, plated food. And I was asking at the end of the event, the people who were cleaning up, like, what's going to happen with all this extra food? That's a lot of really good food there. And the staff said, oh, we have to throw it away, health law. And I was, at the time, like, ugh, That's a bummer. I'm not a lawyer, so someone should figure that out. Well, little did I know, someone had figured it out, and it was actually the federal government, which I was like, what? That's exciting. So the federal government passed the Bill Emerson Good Samaritan Act in the late 90s that protects donors from any civil or criminal liabilities when they donate food to a nonprofit organization. Because a lot of times there's still this, tale of, well, we donated something, someone got sick and they sued us. That's just not true. That's not the
Right.
case. They've had, University of Arkansas Law School did case review to see, has anyone had to use the Bill Emerson Good Samaritan Act since it has been, law done? And the answer was no. There have not been. I think it's an easy, because everyone is, no one wants to be sued by any means. But I think too, what we're forgetting is where this food is going, suing someone is not the top of your mind. Where this food is going is, I'm grateful to have a meal. I'm grateful that this food is available. And I think that's the part that, for us, the places we're taking this food, no one knows if it was donated or purchased. Only we know that. So, I think there's been a lot of just fear put in this that is preventing, and the benefits for all of this, that's also, not only are donors protected, they also have expanded tax benefits when they donate this food. So not only are you saving on your waste costs, you're actually getting a tax benefit. And beyond that, we've really seen that employees feel so much better about it. I think when you talk about who makes the decision about not donating the food and then who physically has to throw it away, those are not the same people. And, I think we've found that for a lot of these companies that are actively doing food recovery and making it a part of their business, their employees are proud to work there. No one wants to throw away perfectly good food. And I think when we look at some of these maybe lower wage positions that have food, a lot of times we're asking people who are dealing with food insecurity to throw away perfectly good food. And I just, as a human, can't. That is not
Right.
okay. But again, they're not the decision makers. And we're not going to put those who don't have the power to make those decisions, having the chance of losing their job. So I think that's really where we've really been trying to go higher, and find out who are the decision makers and get them to make the decision with them. We're the first ones to say there is no food rescue relationship. They're all unique. Food rescue is all about relationships. It's about working with people, understanding, what do you have? What do you need? What would work best? And that's what, Eat Greater Des Moines is working to do. And we have, we're not unique. We have partners across the country that are doing the same thing, and I think that's really where, especially in Iowa, we have an opportunity to do that better. There is no one size fits all. There's no one entity that can do everything for everybody, and I think that's what I've been most excited about is once we let people know, that this is possible. And not only is it possible, it's incredibly beneficial. What I've been most excited about recently is we've had a few, new community refrigerators, which we
Yes, and
can
I was going to
talk
bring that up.
about.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and it's been great because one, the community refrigerator, we've launched these in a lot of libraries, and really our role is to kind of find where are people already and how could we put food there? And libraries have been such an incredible partner in that space. So we can help them get the fridge. We might be able to help them get food, but we don't run the fridge. We can't supply all the food. And what I've loved is seeing, for example, we have a library in Granger, Iowa that just, got started. And that library director is incredible. She's been the one that went to her local grocery store. She went to her local convenience store and she got them to donate because she knows them. She's who they have a relationship with. And that's what makes me so excited, because if everyone's waiting for us to do all of that, we're a small team of two, less than, we're hiring new people, which is exciting, but we can't be the ones that do all of that. I think that's really where, once we start to see more just community members and people in the community recognizing this is our community's food. This was brought here, and it going in the garbage is bad for everybody. And we're going to take ownership and to see what, we have another person who launched a fridge, and she's gotten 4 new donors going that benefit not just her fridge, but benefit everybody else as well when they can't use it. That's what makes me very excited to see the role that we're playing is really just empowering people to recognize you can do other things. You don't have to open a food pantry to make a difference. You can be the one that goes out and gets more businesses to donate food. You can be the one that, looks around your community and says, where could we put food, and build those relationships. But the only way we're going to figure this out is by a lot of people caring and a lot of people
Yeah.
working together to say, how can we do this? Because how we've been doing it so far, and just it's kind of like out of sight, out of mind. We're like, oh, we have a food pantry. That's enough. It's not enough. And we know it's not enough, but it's completely figure outable if we get enough people recognizing that, we want them to do it. I want them to do it. I kind of call myself mostly the chief hype person. I'm the person who someone calls and they're like, could we do this? And my answer is usually, yes, yes, you can.
Yes.
Let's figure out how. And I'll work with you. We'll work with you to figure it out. But, I think that's an important role that we play, is just helping communities and people recognize the opportunities that they have. And that's exciting.
Right. It's like you guys are you're planting the seed in the community, but it's the community's role to make sure that they're growing that, and they're sowing that seed to for the whole community. And there's some pride in that, and knowing that, hey, you're helping your community be healthier, and giving people access to healthful foods.
Yeah, it's been great, following the Granger Library Facebook page. Just the quality of food that she's rescuing and she's getting is all of this really amazing fresh produce, hummus. Like, it's great food, and it's all right there at the library, and it's for free. And I think, what I'm loving about the community refrigerators is I think there's always been food that's okay for others. A lot of times I think people can recognize when you're donating to a pantry, you go through your pantry and be like, what do I not like? What do
Yep.
I not want? What's really old? And that's
Yep.
what we give, which I've done that too. I have been that person. Instead of looking at all of this food as, would I eat it? Do I want that? Is that what I have? We look at the food in community refrigerators as, that's food for everybody. You don't have to be in need. If you need a sandwich and there's a sandwich there, eat it. Really taking out this othering of, well, that's good enough food for them. If it's not good enough food for you, then don't give it to someone else. We need to really reframe this whole, you know, what's okay, what's not okay, and really look more again expansively into, I think for the community refrigerators, the benefit is we don't have to prove need. We're not there checking, are you needy enough, is what we hear a lot. We don't care. The refrigerator is there for everybody, and anybody who is using that fridge is helping everybody. That food is good. It's not going in the garbage. So we want everyone to see these refrigerators as theirs. They help put the food in it. They help take the food out. They help keep it clean. Community refrigerators are only successful because of the community. And that was a big leap. When we launched our first one with Sweet Tooth Farm in December 2020, is what would happen. And what we've seen now is, when it's something the community wants, it's something the community values and takes care of. And so now we went from one to we have almost 40. And we don't run those. Those are run by the community. And I think that's incredible to see just what's possible there.
Right. And yeah, I think for most people, even not even knowing that that is even a an option, and then seeing that and being like, wow. Because I can only imagine, and this is just coming from not my own experience, but coworkers that I know that
Mhm.
utilize these fridges in their community. And they're just talking about how, when you see somebody there, you don't even know if they're grabbing something or giving something. it's because it's for the community. So
Hmm.
she'll go and she may see something that she'll take, or he'll go back there and they'll add something,
Yeah.
to the community. And I'm curious though, in these communities, they're different races, they're different cultures. What I'm curious if what do those fridges look like, that are they inclusive for other cultures, or are there separate refrigerators for people that eat a certain way who don't eat pork, or whatever the case may be? But what does that look like? What's your experience been there?
Yeah, I think, and that's what's kind of unique about these refrigerators is they are unique to the community, and so a fridge in a school would have different items in it because, it's for kids. And so it's more ready to eat things and stuff that is easier for someone to eat on the go. Whereas we also have like the fridges in libraries or refrigerators in medical clinics. Again, it really is built by what goes in it, and what moves quickly is based on who's there. I think the challenge with these community refrigerators is, we can't guarantee anything is in there at any given moment. And I think that's been somewhat tricky is, when we've been helping launch these community refrigerators, we don't make a big deal about it. We don't blast it on our Facebook page, because we've found, one of the best parts about the Sweet Tooth community fridge that we partnered with them to launch is it got a lot of attention, and that was great. But with that attention brings positive and negative. And it also means that fridge is utilized so much more than any of the other refrigerators in our community. And that's only a challenge because it moves through food so much more quickly. So, that's where there doesn't need to be just one fridge. That's why it's really been important for us to put more fridges in more places so people don't feel like, well, I have to drive again 20 miles to get to this fridge. Our vision and hope is, how many places are there people? Why don't we have fridges there? I think that's the part too, is we know that if we actually rescued all of the food that was available in our community that was being thrown away every day, it would be too much for our current food pantry and food bank partners. They would not have the ability to distribute it. So that's really where, for us as we were growing this, recognizing, well, where else are people and how could we put food there? Having the infrastructure of a fridge to make it safe to store perishable items is the first part in building the infrastructure and the landscape for when we do get all of these places that have food to participate in food recovery. Then we have it in more places, and we can have, more. So there can be communities where, if they have dietary kind of restrictions and needs, we try to direct food to places where we know it's going to be the best fit. So for example, right before this, I got a call from an event location that had a celebration of life service, and afterwards it was catered, and they had 3 pans of pasta, and then 3 pans, one full of chicken breast and two full of sausage and meatballs. So that's a ton of really good food that doesn't go well in a community refrigerator because it's too big. So that's where our job is to say, we don't serve any people food directly, but we're working with all the groups who serve food so then we can direct it to the best spot for it. Because that's, still some of that tricky part is not all things work in all places. So that's the part we're trying to simplify for those with food to know, if you have 5 box lunches, where's the best place for that to go? Versus if you have 5 enormous pans of pasta, where's the best place for that to go? And so that's really the role Eat Greater Des Moines has been playing since we started, but we're getting more efficient at it now that we have software and technology that allows us to not only put the word out of where that food is going, but engage volunteers to help with that pickup and delivery. So, I think we're really trying to recognize that we want people to have what they want. What do you want? What do you need? And not just, well, here's what you get. This is what
Right.
we have. So, really trying to work with all of our partners to know, do you not want pork? Are this vegetarian, vegan? Like all of those kinds of wants, that's what we want to know, because we know it's in our community. We just want to make sure it gets to them, so that we can just make that process simpler. But there's so much out there that right now there's so much need, and there aren't enough people participating. So we haven't worked out that balance yet. Right now, it's still a very much a scarcity mindset within all of these groups trying to feed people, because a lot of times they're pitted against each other to, get resources. Whereas food, this is the one where instead of looking at food as scarcity, because we pass that on to the people that we're serving, instead of looking at it as, we have more than enough here for everybody. But we will not get that to everybody if we look at it as only us, instead of looking at how can we work together and really move this at scale so that everyone working together, everybody gets more food. But that has been a very slow shift, and
Mm,
we're not there yet, because until people have what they need, they're not going to look at this as abundance. We can talk about it being abundant because we know it is, but until
right,
those places are willing to donate it instead of throwing it away, we're going to stay stuck.
right. No, that's real. Aubrey, I know that you've been doing this work for a long time. You can tell that this is a passion of yours to really be a leader in this area and then really see change. But you can't sit here and tell me that some days just suck.
Ugh.
so so tell me how are you what how are you getting through all this and fighting the good fight about something that is has so many layers to it,
Mhm.
right? This is a food system issue. What keeps you just getting up every day and being the hype woman you say you are, getting your
Mhm.
flavor on, getting people hype up to do the work? What is it? What keeps you going?
It's stuff, getting to talk with you, getting to talk with others, and who I think getting to share my excitement and passion, and to let other people know, like, this is all completely possible, and what keeps me going are those little, like, going from one community fridge to almost 40, seeing the
Right.
progress that everyone is making, that we helped kickstart, but we kickstarted it, they kept it going. That's what gives me hope. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. 2022 was rough. 2020 was
Yeah.
rough. I kept, getting into the new year being like, okay, it's got to be better this year. 22 was pretty bad. And, that has been really, there have been plenty of meetings where I've cried and just, I'm frustrated, because I think that's the other challenge of running a nonprofit is we do rely on donations and funding to do this work. And
Right.
so it's a real delicate balance between being able to talk very openly, honestly, and clearly about what the challenges are, while recognizing that many in the funding space don't like that. They don't want you to talk about the challenges and barriers. Iowa, we have this whole Iowa nice. Well, oh, Iowa nice doesn't mean it's kind, and it doesn't mean it's
Mm,
effective, and it doesn't mean we're doing the things we need to do to make sure everybody has what they need. And, so I've had people be like, well, maybe, are you just not being patient? Yeah. After 10 years, I've only been doing this for 10 years, but after 10 years, if I'm having the same conversations with the same people, 10 years, I am losing my patience. And
right.
I've recognized we're small. I'm small. We don't have the power and the leverage and the, ability to really lift up some of these discussions. So it's been really reliant on those who do have the power to lift it up. And last year we recognized, like, when I push on that, we lost funders. We lost one of our biggest funders because I pushed about practicing what you preach. And instead of doing that, they said, we're not going to fund you anymore. And we're actually going to tell other people they shouldn't fund you either. And so that's the kind of stuff that, I've said I would rather go down in my integrity, but I also, it hurts and it feels horrible when people would rather have you not say anything than deal with it. I think it's the same systemic racism and all of these things that people get more mad at those talking about it than they do about it being a problem. That's the stuff that I just can't, especially when it's coming from those in the community who are seen as leaders, who are seen as the ones who do the work. I think I've been really just disillusioned with some of those that I've put a lot of faith in being a leader in this work. And I've found that for a lot of people, talk is one thing. I'm going to watch people's actions. And you can say whatever you want, but what are you doing? And that's really how, there's enough people out here that are doing amazing work and want to partner. We're going to work with them. We're going to keep lifting up. We're going to keep talking about what could be better and how what's possible. But we're also going to just keep moving forward with those who are ready and want to keep doing
Right.
stuff. So it's a real balance of how to not become like, I don't want to be the person that at a meeting that's like, oh gosh, Aubrey's here. We're going to hear her wrath again. That's not fun because that's not who
Right.
I am. But I also have realized over the last year that of all my values, justice is the highest. I have the privilege to talk about this work. I have the privilege to not, I know where my food is coming. I have food. I have enough
Right.
access to that. And I'm going to use that to make things better. And if, it's hard, it's supposed to be hard. If it wasn't hard, it'd be done. So I'm hoping,
Absolutely.
that said, I'm really hoping 2023 isn't going to be as hard as 2022, but we'll see.
Yes, I hope that works out for you so much, so much. Aubrey, thank you so much for being on with me today. I really, really, truly appreciated your time and your input on this super important issue. For those that are listening or watching and they want to learn more about Eat Greater Des Moines, the food rescue, or bringing a community fridge to their community, or even just learning more about you, where can they reach you and find you?
Yeah, so eatgreaterdesmoines.org is our website. We actually have on there information. We have our community fridge toolkit and ways that you can donate food, download our food rescue app. We also are on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn as Eat Greater Des Moines or Aubrey Alvarez. And otherwise, like I said, we might be based in Des Moines, Iowa. But what I love is I'm talking with a group from Illinois in a couple weeks about a community fridge. We have partners across the country that are doing incredible work. And I love getting to talk to anyone from anywhere who's excited to bring something like this to their community. I think, I must have gotten an A+ in kindergarten with sharing because I would much rather share what I've learned and let someone, there's plenty of mistakes you're going to make. You can just make new ones. You don't have to make the ones I made. I think, I'm pretty upfront and honest and know that the only way through is if we can go through with others and really build this up and recognize that everything people need is in their community. We just need to give them the resources and the power to make the change. And that's not going to happen with any one organization. But if I can help others feel like they have that ability and that they can be the person, that's what I want to keep doing.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Aubrey, again, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciated it. And everyone, thank you for listening to the Healthy Project podcast. I'll let you next time.